The Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield. Where did the fun go? Remember the days where we had fun playing sports? Are we over teaching our kids and forcing them to quit playing sports at an early age? Do we have the right balance when it comes to parenting and coaching? We're going to get into this on an all new episode right here on Fighting for Overtime. Fighting for our kids, fighting for them to have fun. Back here on the Fighting for Overtime podcast, I am Coach Tony, and we're going to discuss a very interesting topic this week. It's one that can go several different ways, and that is, are we teaching our kids too much? Are we extending these lessons beyond the fundamentals? It's really a good question. And this comes from one of my favorite people, my man Sean Selsby of the Corner Pub Sports Podcast. You can check them out every Friday night. Sends me a message like a lot of people do about topics and trends within youth sports. And this one in particular reads, the biggest misconception of youth baseball is parents think lessons teach kids. The kids are over-lessoned and the baseball IQ suffers. They aren't playing enough sandlot wiffle ball anymore. That's where they learn to play loose, have fun, and learn the game without parents hollering at them. There's too many lessons, too much pressure, and not enough fun. And that's why we're wondering how 73% quit at the age of 13. Now, this was from a sports page that people follow from a particular person, not Sean, but he sent me this screenshot of what this person said. And I think it has a lot of credence behind it. If you break it down and we just go back to what sports used to be, and we've talked about this before in this program, again, Fighting for Overtime, make sure you're following the podcast on all social formats, obviously TikTok, Instagram, but on all digital formats, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast from, Podbean as well, be fantastic if you give us a review. Greatly appreciate it. But when you look back and you think about growing up, and I mentioned those movies in the beginning, The Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, not only great movies, but great stories, feel-good stories, stories full of fantastic endings, stories full of fun. And that word fun is extremely important. From all my years of coaching, I've always learned that no matter how hard you push, no matter how hard you teach, if you don't add fun into the platform, it's going to fail. Because number one, if you're too serious, if you're too strict, and you take all the fun out of it, you strip it down to just a full out lesson, guess what? It's not going to work. You know why? Kids are going to practices and these games to get away from lessons, to get away from that strict structure that they face in school every single day. If you treat this like school, it's going to fail. And I understand there still needs to be structure. I understand there still needs to be a force behind the lesson, a culture of rules, and a strict following of those rules. 100% understand it, but fun still has to exist. For example, even when I coached teenagers, you had to add a little fun. You could go for a practice and work these kids beyond the requirements, but you still need to send them home with a smile. Whether that's playing a quick, if you're in soccer, you play a power and finesse game, you play a lightning game. I'm not sure what games they play in baseball, but that always gave the kids a smile. That always gave the kids a sense of togetherness. And I want to go back to that statement that says, when you over-lessen your kids, the IQ suffers. I think it's a very powerful statement. And I think we can attribute that to anything. Because if you pressure and pressure and pressure enough, you don't learn anymore. Your brain shuts down. The mind needs a break. And you start not listening anymore. which that's when your IQ does suffer. I'll give you an example. This podcast is always going to give you examples, whether it's real life, whether it's about my coaching, whether it's about my family, whether it's about my friends, things that I have lived and things that I have done. And hopefully when you listen to these, if you try these in your everyday life, hopefully they work for you as well. My daughter just passed her boards to become a licensed esthetician. Extremely proud of her. Extremely proud. Worked her ass off. The thing I want to bring up, though, is before she took the test, she went to one of her favorite local establishments and said, I'm going to sit there for 3 to 4 hours, get myself some lunch, put my Spotify on, and just hit the books. Thought about it. You know, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time to force your brain to cooperate before you take a 105-minute test. So what I did halfway through, I left the house, went and surprised her, and she said, what's up? I said, look, you need a break. Let's just talk. Not about school, not about grades, not about the test, not about your career. Just let's just have some fun. Laugh a little bit, joke around a little bit for about a half hour. Before you know it, it was an hour. She took a couple more practice tests. I gave her a hug, wished her luck, left. Half hour later, she calls me, says, Dad, I passed. I'm not saying she passed because of that, but what I'm saying is your brain needs to function, but it also needs to have a break. And I think that statement of over-lessening our kids makes their IQ suffer is so powerful because I think it is true. If you force feed them too much, yes, their mind is like a sponge. You're going to hear that all the time. These kids at a young age, their mind's like a sponge. I understand. I think it's one of the biggest cliches in life. I do. I'm 46 years old and my mind is still like a sponge. So I don't really think it has to do with just age. I think it has to do with how much passion, how much energy you have, and how invested you are into whatever lesson you are learning. And when it comes to the lessons, it's all about how you approach those lessons, how you convey those lessons. You need to read the room. You need to read your team. You need to read your players. You have to understand. And this all goes back, and I brought that Sandlot game up because it all goes back to what we used to do as kids. When I was a kid, I used to love going to the park and playing stickball, playing fast pitch, playing bounce pitch, right? Cut down that old Coho hockey stick, tape it up, get the nice yellow wiffle ball bat, stuff it with paper, wrap it with some tape. Man, you could hit the ball a long way. How much fun was that? I looked forward to that. I played baseball, but guess what? Before practice, that's what I did. I went to practice, and I had one coach that I completely would zone out on, because all he did was hammer us and hammer us and hammer us at 10 years old. I got to a point where I was like, look, no matter what I do is right. No matter what I do is not good enough. I'm not having any fun. I don't want to be here. I just want to go back to the tennis court and start hitting bounce pitch again because I was having fun. Now, fast forward a year later, coaches change. Coach has multiple different stations going on within a practice. Very empowering, very positive. Listen, I was not one of the best hitters at all. But guess what? He instilled a confidence into me, and he found some of my biggest flaws and taught me that it's okay to fail as long as you're having fun. Think about that. It's okay to fail as long as you're having fun. You might think, what on God's earth are you talking about? How can you have fun in failure? But you can. You can. Because one of the biggest statements is we always live to fight another day. Hence, fighting for overtime. The podcast name. We always live to fight another day. So why do we have to be so upset with failure? Especially when it comes to youth sports. And I say this because of so many different instances I have seen over the years. Kids that have played for me, kids that have played for other people, and just their total mindset on how they approach as a coach, as a player, and let's not forget, as a parent. Because the parent has a huge role in this. The parent has to not only enforce what the coach is teaching, but also make sure their child understands that there's more to it than just that lesson. I think that's very important. This is a very powerful episode because making sure that these kids have fun. I mean, you heard it, 73% of kids quit before the age of 13. If you listen to the episode prior, we talked about Lexi Thompson, who quit the game of golf at the age of 30 because she was burnt, she was spent. And I think we see that a lot. I have a team right now that I'm done with from a soccer standpoint. They're 16, 17, 18 years old. And most of them, when you ask them, they want to continue to play, they say not really because they've had enough. And that's not a bad thing. See, that's the thing. Everybody thinks that it's such a bad thing if the child decides he doesn't want to play anymore. Everybody thinks why is it a bad thing? I don't understand. Number one, I think it's a revelation because that child is becoming an adult in the sense that he or she is making a life decision. They're adulting in a sense. That's a big deal. We need to applaud that. If your child comes to you and just says, I don't want to play anymore, obviously you're going to ask them why. You're going to say, why don't you want to play anymore? And he or she's going to be like, you know what? I'm not having fun. Okay. And they may go on and have a little more elaborate conversation about it. And that's a big deal because they're growing up. They're learning to listen not only to their head, but their body. They're learning at a young age when it's time to say enough. How many times did we hear football, basketball, hockey, baseball, all different sports? How many times athletes did we hear them say, I'm just not having fun anymore? Think about it. It's powerful. It's a very powerful thing. So if we're force feeding these kids now at a young age and we're continuing to jam these lessons down their throats every single day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, guess what? Their IQ is going to suffer because now they're not going to have the ability to make these decisions. That's so important. So very important. It's one of the biggest lessons I teach my kids, my own kids, not just the kids that I coach. And I think you all can probably feel the same way. Now, you know, I always compare these topics to real life situations. So think about this one. I just talked to somebody that I'm very good friends with and that coaches on a high school level who has told me that they're done. And you know why he said he's done? He's burnt out. After 4 or 5 years, he's burnt out. The commitment is that deep. He loves it. Absolutely loves it. But he's burnt out. And he knows that he's coming to a time where he wants to spend more moments with his immediate family. He kind of wants his life back. Think about that. If you're coaching, whether it be soccer, basketball, baseball, softball, track, on a high school level, you're not all year round, supposedly, but it is an all year round thing. Private workouts, training modules, lesson books, lesson plans, drills, all this stuff has to be done when the season's over. So your mind never shuts off. Again, never shuts off, which in a sense is making you a little dumber because you don't have the ability to breathe. What happens when the brain doesn't get oxygen? It can't breathe. And if the brain can't breathe, what happens? We suffer mentally, our mind. We have to learn how to do things all over again. So that's a big statement. Over lessening our kids is making their IQ lower. And it's adults, it's kids, it's everybody. Youth sports has changed on so many levels. And like I always do, I'm going to give you a coaching perspective on not necessarily the lessons and the IQ, but how the game has changed and how the fun is being taken out of it by organizations. Not just the coach, not just the parent, not just the player, but the people who run these organizations. Unfortunately, I had an extremely bad experience with a local organization when I first started coaching. And this is basically going to be a 3 to 4 part story where you're going to get part 1 on this episode. When I decided to coach travel soccer, it was a big step for me. I was the intramural guy. I loved coaching my intramural team. Loved every minute of it. Go to the field once a week for a practice, 1 game on a weekend. It was great. Kids were laughing. Kids were having fun. I met some fantastic people in my intramural years. And then as I noticed, there was opportunities within my own community where I could become a travel coach, something I never did from a soccer level. Now, again, think about it. We're talking 10 years ago. I'll tell you what, I never understood why it was that deep. Now, I'm not talking about a club where you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars, a highly credible and sought after organization. Not talking about any of that. We're not talking about one of those elite travel clubs. We're just talking about a local club. And I felt like I was running for president of the United States. I had to jump through so many hoops just to become a youth travel coach of 8-year-olds. Think about that. 8-year-olds. I was blown away. I really was. First time I've ever seen a process like this. First time I met these people, first time I was at this club for something like this, had no idea what to expect, and I was totally blown away. Now think about this much. I've been coaching for many years prior to that. Tons of references, tons of clearances, but still was told that I need to coach with somebody. Okay, no problem. So they give me a partner who expressed interest in the team. Not an issue. I'm a team player. I'll go along with it. Pretty good guy. So we start right away. This guy disappears. Then, long story short, all of a sudden he can't make the commitment, can't do this, can't do that. So instead of just saying, hey, Tony, you could just continue on with the team. Oh, no, we had to go through another whole round of interviews, like a cross-examination, like I'm on like Law and Order SVU just trying to coach a travel team. So I finally get the act of Congress and everything works, and I'm the main guy. Now, here's the moral of the story. My main focus in the beginning was to have fun, but still try to be competitive based on who we were playing. I think that's a very admirable thing to do. I think that's the way most people should coach, in my opinion, at 8, 9, 10 years old. Well, the guy who was supposed to commit to the team decided that wasn't good enough. Decided it was so far from his standards, he had to write a letter to the board. And this is where everything gets out of hand. And what I mean by that is if you don't agree with the coach, if you don't agree with his methods, if you don't agree with his technique, that's fine. I've been there. I'm not going to sit here on this show and tell you that I've never disagreed with the way a coach operated or ran his organization or his team. Absolutely not. I think we're all human and we're always going to question things. But when you start to attack a person from a physical attribute, it's ridiculous. I mean, this guy literally wrote a letter about how I was unfit to be a soccer coach because I had a dad bod. And this dude was wearing ASIC gels running a track meet every day at Planet Fitness. I'm sorry. I didn't know that I had to pass a stamina test to be a soccer coach. Yeah. Was I packing on a few pounds? Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, I've lost almost 40 pounds from that point back then. But that's not the issue. The issue is why somebody as a parent decides that they can attack and body shame anybody for that reason just because they don't agree with their methodology. And this all comes back to not allowing us to have fun in youth sports. 8, 9, 10 years old. I mean, listen, they still have to have fun at 17, 18, 19, in my opinion, but especially at 8, 9, and 10. And just because you couldn't see that, you were so insistent on winning every single game, it brought you to the point where you couldn't control yourself. It brought you to the point where you pulled your kid off the field before a game even started because he wasn't starting at 8 years old. What's wrong with you, man? Think about it. This is the problem in the culture we have today. And we have to fix this, and there's a way to fix this. As a coach, you have every opportunity to fix it. You don't have to listen to a board. You don't pay to be a coach. Now, maybe some organizations pay a coach. I've never been paid to be a coach. I didn't want to be paid to be a coach. I wanted to grow a bunch of young kids who had bright futures, and I wanted to trump the narrative of not being able to keep a team together. And for the most part, I feel like I did. Now, there was a lot of rocky road along the way, which we're going to get into in the next 3 episodes. But that's where the journey began for me as a coach in the travel world, and learning that people can't take the fact that you lose, and as a coach, you want to have fun. Again, this brings us back to the statement. Are we teaching our kids too much in sports to the fact that we are lessening their IQ? Is it a reason why 73% of kids right now in America are quitting before the age of 13? You have to have fun. You have to be smiling. You have to have fun to be invested. No kid at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is going to invest in a program if they don't have fun for at least a little bit. Yes, they're going to invest because some people are all about the win. Yes, they're going to invest because they feel like they'll get more playing time if they invest. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you cannot smile and you cannot have fun and you cannot show that these kids at least one point of your practice plan can open up and be themselves and create relationships and create a bond and create memories and create moments, you will lose as a coach because you will lose your team. And you will suffer going forward because, again, these kids will not buy in. Now, in the next episode, what happens when you try to support a kid from the area by wearing a different color shirt? You will not believe what I went through as a coach at 9 years old. We went up a year at 9 years old, 9 and 10, on a travel team for just trying to wear a different jersey. Again, Coach Tony here, Fighting for Overtime podcast. Make sure you follow us on all social formats and make sure you let your kids have fun. Don't be a part of that 73% that force these kids to quit before the age of 13. Fighting for Overtime is a Rise and React media production. If you're looking to start a podcast, if you're looking to get some direction, hit us up, let us know. We'll help you out there as well. Again, for everybody, enjoy your time, memories and moments, and keep fighting that fight. Continue to fight in overtime to make your kid have the best experience that they can have when it comes to playing youth sports.